last ranger to patrol this sector reported movement in the forest. What he recorded next was never meant to be heard. This recording comes from the Cryptid Files, a collection of recovered incident reports involving unknown predators in the wilderness of Canada, being investigated by the secretive organization, the MCC, also known as the Ministry of Cryptid Control. This is the Cryptid Files, Case File 003. The Ranger's last transmission. Classification: restricted. Location: remote forest patrol zone near Kamloops, interior of British Columbia. Status: officer missing. The transmission began normally. Static crackled through the radio as Conservation Officer Daniel Mercer checked in from his routine patrol. His truck was parked on an overgrown logging road miles from the nearest town. The forest stretched endlessly around him, a thick sea of pine and cedar disappearing into the mountains. "Dispatch, this is Mercer," he said calmly. "Just checking the northern patrol zone. Found some unusual tracks along the ridge trail, possibly a large bear." The dispatcher acknowledged him. "Copy that, Mercer. Any sign of poachers?" "Negative." There was a pause. Mercer stepped out of the truck, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. The afternoon air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of moss and old timber. Something felt off. He looked down at the ground again. The tracks weren't right. They were enormous, larger than any bear he had seen. The impressions were deep, pressed into the mud with unnatural weight. And the shape was wrong. 3 forward claws, a long heel mark, almost reptilian. Mercer exhaled slowly. "Dispatch, I'm looking at something strange here." "Strange how?" Mercer crouched beside the track, measuring it with his hand. "This thing's at least 16 inches across." "Bear?" "No," Mercer said quietly. His voice lowered. "Whatever made this was walking on 2 legs." The radio crackled. "Say again?" Mercer straightened and scanned the forest around him. The trees were silent, too silent. He suddenly realized he couldn't hear a single bird. "Dispatch, I'm going to follow the trail a little further." The recording resumed nearly 15 minutes later. Mercer's breathing was heavier now. Branches snapped underfoot as he pushed deeper into the forest. "Dispatch, the tracks are still here, and they're fresh." Static hissed across the radio. "Describe them again?" Mercer hesitated. I've been doing this job for 12 years, he said. "I've tracked bears, cougars, wolves, but I've never seen anything like this." He stopped walking. Something ahead had caught his attention. "Hold on." Leaves rustled somewhere in the distance. Mercer's voice dropped to a whisper. "I think something's moving out here." The radio crackled again. "Probably a moose." Mercer didn't answer, because the movement wasn't wandering like a moose. It was circling, slow, deliberate. Mercer turned scanning the forest. The underbrush shifted again, closer now. His breathing drew faster. Dispatch, whatever this is, it's following me. There is a long pause on the radio. Then the sound of Mercer running. Branches snapped violently as he crashed through the forest. His breathing came in panicked bursts. Dispatch, I need backup. What's happening? Mercer didn't answer immediately, because something else was moving through the trees with him. Something heavy, something fast. He glanced over his shoulder, and he saw it. The creature moved between the trees with terrifying speed. Its scaled body blended with the shadows, its long tail whipping through the undergrowth beneath it. Its head lifted slightly as it ran. Two enormous eyes locked onto Mercer. The pupils were narrow, vertical. Mercer screamed into the radio, "It's not a bear! It's not a bear!" The dispatcher shouted back, "Mercer, what do you see?" Mercer stumbled as he ran, his boots slipping in the wet leaves. "It's huge! Jesus Christ, it's..." A deafening roar erupted behind him. The sound shook the radio with distortion. Mercer's voice broke into pure terror. "It's right behind me!" Branches snapped. Claws tore through brush. Mercer burst into a small clearing and turned, raising his rifle. The creature stepped into the open. Even through the distorted audio, the moment of silence was unmistakable. Mercer whispered one final sentence. "Oh my God!" Then he fired. The gunshot echoed through the forest. The recording erupted into chaos, a thunderous impact. Mercer screaming, the sound of something massive crashing into him, then static. The radio continued transmitting for several seconds after that. The only sound left was something heavy moving through the trees, and a low, deep breathing, followed by a sharp hiss that disappeared faintly. The recording then ended abruptly. 3 days later, search teams located Mercer's patrol truck along the Long Eden Road. The vehicle was untouched. His radio lay on the ground nearby, but Mercer himself was never found. Investigators discovered only 2 pieces of evidence. The first was Mercer's rifle, bent nearly in half. The second was a set of massive tracks leading back into the forest, each one nearly 16 inches long. 2 dark, unmarked SUVs arrived at the scene the following morning. The men who stepped out carried federal identification. One of them reviewed the auto recording on a tablet. He listened carefully to the final moments. The roar, the gunshot, Mercer's terrified voice. When the recording ended, the man sighed. He looked towards the endless forest stretching beyond the road. Then he spoke quietly into his radio. "It's a confirmed relic predator encounter." A pause. Then he added one more sentence. "Notify the Ministry of Cryptid Control." He glanced at the enormous tracks in the mud. "This one's larger than the last. Far larger." And somewhere deep within the dark forests of British Columbia, something had just finished feeding. Thank you for listening, And if you like eerie stories like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you go into the deep woods and you hear something, it's already too late.